Hey guys, hope everybody is safe and healthy. I'm Pranesh here, who will be your instructor for today's session. So in today's session, we're going to learn about few terms that we use in chess, and also we will be talking about the chess notations. So I hope you guys know how the pieces move and how the pieces are arranged. So first we'll talk about few terms that we use in chess. So I hope you guys would know all these spaces in the most colloquial terms that we use. For example, the soldier, the rook, or that's what we call professionally. We call this as the elephant in the colloquial term, the horse, and we call this as the bishop. As bishop is this term that we use for all pieces. Not all, for all pieces. We basically try to represent them as bishops, even in the colloquial terms. So here, the soldier is not what we use in chess. We use the term pawn to represent the soldier. The elephant is represented as the rook, and the horse is represented as the knight with a K in front of it. That is Knight. Now, to explain this further, we will go with some of the terms that we will be using in all the classes that is upcoming. So first, we'll discuss about and talk about the terms called the file and the rank. So the file and the ranks are nothing but the rows and the columns of the board. I hope you guys know that there are totally 64 squares in a chessboard, which has a configuration of 8 rows and 8 columns. The columns are represented with alphabets and the rows are represented with the numbers. So here, while we talk about the term file, files are nothing but the vertical lines that are drawn in the board. As I'm drawing these as these lines that is represented in this board. So there are totally 8 files in a board. So the files, as I told you, are represented with alphabets. So this one is the A file, the B file, the C file, and the D file, and so on. We have the H file. That is 8 files which is represented by a letter, by letters A to H. Now we have to get to know these files term because we're going to use it almost in every game that we analyze, or if you want to look into some other games, these terms would be like used normally in having conversation with a chess player. So files are nothing but the vertical lines, that vertical imaginary lines that we have drawn here, which are basically the columns of the boards called the files, which is represented with the alphabets. Now coming to the term ranks, I think you might have guessed it. It is nothing but the rows of the boards. That is the 8 rows which are represented through numbers. So in our case, it is the first rank, second rank, third rank, fourth rank, and the fifth rank, so on till the 8th rank. So we have 8 ranks in this board totally. So totally there are 8 ranks in the boards, and ranks are represented by numbers, that is from 1 to 8. So this would be the first rank, that is this would be the first rank, the second rank, the third rank, and so on till the 8th rank of the board. So once you understand this term, it will be easy for you to understand and represent a piece in a board. So once this is clear, we can talk about the pieces which are present here and their representation. So now we are going on to the word called chess notations. What do I mean by chess notations? Chess is a very ancient game and was one of the most interesting games which had the ability to record a game just in a piece of paper with the help of a pen. So before, few games like badminton, basketball, without the ability of recording them, we weren't able to know how the players played in those times. But this game is pretty old. That is, it has been played even in the 16th century. People were able to record a game of chess using a pen and paper. Well, how did they do that? And we are still using it in our day-to-day life of a chess player. We do record games so that it is easy to analyze them. We use chess to analyze games and also to record them so that we get to know that how we have played can be analyzed after the game that you have played. So how is this possible? How is that being, doesn't this arise a question that how do you actually record a game? It's pretty simple. Now, as we have studied the files, right now we're going to learn how to name a particular square in the 64 squares. What do I mean by naming them? So I mean by, if you can give me any square in this board and tell them to name them, I can do it. So let's take a square here. For example, let's take the square. Now let me try to name it. It's pretty simple. Now, as I told you about the concept of files, A file, B file, and C file, and to the H file, let's try which file this lies on. Let's see, it's on the F file. So this is on the F file of the board. Now, after finding it out, let's try to find in which rank the square is in. So let's see first rank, second rank, third rank, and fourth rank, and fifth rank. So it's in the fifth rank of the board. So this square is nothing but F5. This square that I am representing is just one second. I will just remove these arrows so that it be pretty easier for you to see the board. So this would be the F file in the fifth rank. So we call this F5. And remember, while we are writing these down, we always tend to represent these pieces, represent the squares, that too, not even pieces. It is the squares in small letters. For example, in this case, we represent F5 as so we use this letter small f, and the rank 5 to represent the square. So that's how we use all the squares. Remember, take a note of it. Squares are represented using small letters. So once this, not only this, you can take any square. For example, let's go to the board to have a clear vision on how we can do that. Let's go to another square here. So here, this is nothing but the B file. Just take this out, these arrows. This is the B file, and we have which is in the fifth rank. It's B5. So let's take another square which is somewhere here. This is the F file and the sixth rank, so it's small f6. Small f6 in the sense like small letter f6. So the reason why we represent the squares in small letter is that we use the capital ones to represent the pieces like the king, the knight, the bishop, the rook, and etc. And the pawns. And the pawns is pretty interesting because we don't use representation for pawns. We use the square name. We give the square names for the pawns. For example, let's take the move, the pawn which is present in the E2 square is right now in the position of E4. Like this is in the E file and this is in the fourth rank, so E4. So we represent a pawn's move just by giving it an E4. So that is here. Let's try to write it down in the whiteboard. So here we'll use the text. So first, this is how we have to write it. The white would be written here with a dash black. So this is how you have to write the score sheet. We call this as the score sheet as we are recording this game. So we generally call this notation scoring whole thing out as the score sheet. So white, for example, for the pawn move which has been played, we just represent with the small e and a 4. We do not represent a letter associated with it. So for representing pieces, so for representing pieces, we use the following. So for first, let's take the most important piece, the king, which is represented with the capital K. The queen is represented with the first letter of the word, that is Q. Now the bishop is represented from the first letter of the word bishop. Now we're going to take the knight, which comes to the K, K N I G H T. So it would be the capital K, right? No, wait a sec. Is it K? So there are two Ks here. The king is represented with the letter K and the knight represented with the letter K. So won't there be a confusion about what pieces has actually moved? To differentiate it, the spelling is Knight, but we represent the knight in such a way that with the letter N, because so that we don't have a confusion between the king and the knight. Then we have the rook. So its first letter is capital R, and now we have the pawn. Now you would be excited to answer this question as it would be capital P. So you're totally wrong, because we will not represent pawn with the letter P, but we would rather represent them with the square name directly. So what do I mean by square name? As I told you before, we just use the square names where the pawn is. So if the pawn is moved to the square e4, we just represent it with the small e4. And one more thing is that all these pieces should be represented in capital letters. So except, even though the pawn should be in small letters though, because we are just representing the square name, so we use the small letters. But for in the case of the bishop or the king, we represent everything in the caps. So let's go to the board once more so that we don't have any confusion. So for example, we use the text. So for white, I'm going to write the pawns that are present here. I'm going to write the pawn first. So all the pawns which as I told you, will be the square names. So let's start from A2. The pawn would be in A2, B2, C2, D2, E2, F2, G2, and H2. So basically, we have all the 8 squares. So that's what we are talking about here. So there are totally 8 squares, and these are all the pawn given name. So that's where they actually go up. That is the pawn from E2 to E4, D2 to D4, etc., etc. Now, after this pawn moves, we have another beautiful representation for the pieces. Right now, I would like to write this down as pieces. P-I-E-C-E-S, pieces, with capital K E1, because first we're going to tell what piece it's going to be. So K is king and E1 is the square where the king is. Now let's go for the next piece. Capital Q, D1 is where the queen is. Then we have the N. The N is nothing but the knight, the horse. Let's try to find where it is. It is in the G1. Now let's go with the bishop. Bishop is on F1, capital B. Bishop is represented by caps. The piece is represented by capital B, and that would be in F1. Now comes the rook, capital R, which would be in H1. Now we are going to go with the next thing. On the other side, we have two bishops actually. So the next bishop, let's take bishop, is on C, small c, 1, and we have another knight which will be represented by N to B1, small b1, and finally the rook which is on the capital R, A1. This is how you represent the white pieces which are present. So guys, today's homework is that you have to write it for the other color, that is for black, and make sure that you familiarize with naming these pieces. That's all for today, because try to first get this thing thoroughly. Your homework would be is to arrange the board and try to write down the notation for black. So what do I mean is that you have to write the same way I've written here. So if you want to check it out, that how I have written this one, it's very pretty simple. We'll go to the screen. I'll just show you how I have written. So in this case, the pawn, let's take, this is the A2 pawn. So we represent with the square in A2, B2, C2, D2, E2, F2, G2, H2. These are the names that are being given here. Then rook on A1, knight on, so rook is on A1, capital R A1. The knight is on B1, capital N, small g, 1. The bishop on C1, capital B, small c, 1. Queen D1, capital Q D1. The king K is on the E1 square. I told you how to write it down. So you can try this also. E4, E5 is the move that was played. So knight to F3. So knight has moved to square F3. So capital N F3. That's how you write it. So this is F, and this is the third rank 3. So capital N F3 means that the knight has moved to F3. So I want you guys to write the same how I have written for the white. That is to write it for the black as what do you represent? How do you represent the pawns? How do you represent these pieces in a paper? And make sure once you're confident, in the next video we will explain. We'll add few more points on how to write these down, how to improve, how to write few other notations, and how to understand how the game has gone. So I'll just give you one more time. Try to write like this that I've written right now. So please do your homework so that you have a clear idea, so that you get done with the basics. Please note all these points so that you can actually try to implement and understand notations, so that you don't have any doubts or anything that you have. Like, if you have any doubts or any request, you can just comment down in the video so that I can help you out with it. And please do your homework. In further videos, we'll talk about the chess notations. So and I would explain you guys on how to explain how to represent few moves in the board. What if your opponent gives a check? How do you represent it will be explained in the next video. I hope you guys got something from this video. Thank you for watching it, and hope to see you guys in the next video. Thank you.
Please like, share and subscribe to our channel Shubhashish Initiative.